All right, first rule of this channel, we do not talk about this channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So this is going to be after waivers for week 14 of fantasy football. This is going to be the proactive waiver wire show. The theory behind the channel this week has to do with playoffs. So hopefully you've gotten into your playoffs. If you haven't gotten into your playoffs, I will talk a little bit about like week 15 versus week 16 and week 14, like what you should be doing with week 14. Obviously, like figure out a way to get in. Do you have to like shoot the moon and roll all upside, hope that you hit on all those guys that are out there versus like can you play for that 40-degree day? In my main money league, I bring this up because like I have a 2-week vacation from fantasy football hell because I clinched a bye, and that means like this week don't matter and next week don't matter. In my high school league, I'm playing I think for a bye week this week. It looks like it's a pretty good chance I'm going to get into that one with that bye week. And again, like the strategy behind those two leagues may be different than like if you're like 6 and 7 and you hope that like this happens, that happens, you have to score a certain amount of points and that guy loses, stuff like that are going to be out there. Like, well, are you going to be going after those guys that have that massive upside? Like the blocks that you have to be doing, looking ahead towards like week 16, if you got that bye already, and you're holding on to a guy that's going to be blocking. I talked to my co-manager in my main money league about strategy because he has to clear with the commissioner because we might not roll a kicker. Because like don't matter in that league, and if we can hold an extra roster spot like for cuff for like 2 weeks at this point, just to see if we maybe like hit the lottery with one of our tickets and we get like a league win or something like that. The craziness that's going to go on because like that gets awfully close to collusion if that guy gets in because like we don't roll a kicker. That league we have a lot of guys on bye in both the leagues, so like it may not be quite as bad as it looks on paper to us, but definitely got to float that out there when it comes to like your leagues and stuff like that that are going to be available. And again, if you're going to be stashing a defense for week 4 or week 15, or you just need to be trying to claw that defense into week 14, or you can plan ahead for like week 16. And again, like should be at a point where like your roster configurations are heavily going to be changing. If you ain't worried about that guy being rolled against you, shouldn't be on your roster. If that guy doesn't have that ability to disproportionately affect the outcome of your league and your chip and you and your league mates and all that stuff, like looking at sabotaging and blocking and when am I going to use this guy? If it takes like 2 or 3 left-hand turns for that guy on the bottom of your bench to ever see your lineup, and we'll talk about like Troy Franklin here later, like probably not a guy that I'm interested in. And unless you're outside of like those like uh little engine that could teams and you're just gonna barely break in, like your juggernaut teams may be have a slightly different configuration rolling into your playoffs ahead. Like, so thinking about those things. So real quick, and we'll move over and we'll talk about this for like 2 guys. We'll talk about like Chuba Hubbard. Could we have predicted Chuba Hubbard? Probably, because like with that injury, coming back from the injury, snap share was not particularly as high as we want. Like we did get that like run of Rico Dowdle, and then we could start guessing with week 12 that maybe it was going to be more of a split backfield. So I'm not saying that you would get like the 19.4, and I think he finished as, where's he at? I finished as running back 5 this week. I'm not saying that you were shooting for like a top 5 running back finish, and 19 points is nothing to shake a stick at, but it's not something that you would normally look at and say like, hey, that's going to like win me a week. But like you can talk about like, yeah, he was in like running back desperation 2 range, if you had him out there. And the other one, Kaimani Vidal, which I got this week. In one league I got him because the main money league, somehow, some way, no one picked him up, and I was able to get him for free. In my high school league, some guy, and again, this is one of the guys that this is not his main league. He picked him up, so I got to roll Kaimani Vidal in one league, and the other league, that guy is steaming back into the playoffs because he's making savvy moves like this, like just being able to hold that guy and go, hey, I got the right answer because it cost me nothing to be wrong. If I don't get that one. So anyway, moving on to week 15 defenses that we're going to be looking out there. And let's see, moving over my notes, Bears and Browns, like don't know exactly who the Browns quarterback is. And you're just going to be going after like those young, turnover machine or not good offenses at this point, like going after them. Eagles and Raiders, again, like not good offense right now with the Raiders. The Eagles are going to have like the possibility to be just like a set and forget defense at this point going on out there. Let's see. Panthers and Saints, you may be able to get a little bit both ways on this one if you want to get a little cute right there. Probably would be leaning more towards rolling the Panthers against the Saints right now, but like that's going to flop every week. I don't know if I would necessarily stash that ahead of time. Probably a little bit more block, I would think, at this point. Dallas and Vikes and the Vikings are going to be one of those teams that we're going to be targeting. Like, doesn't matter how bad the defense is, I would probably be going after them right there with the Cowboys. All right, week 16, or roll back up here. You're looking at Bills and Browns again, like going after the Browns if they're available. Probably more of a 40-degree day at this point. Uh, Chiefs and Titans, and again, Titans would be one of the ones that would be going after. Chiefs may be one of those defenses that are held in like all leagues, like just like your weekly starters, and you're streaming around them. But I don't know who's available in your leagues at this point. Again, like the Jets and the Saints, probably you're gonna get queued on both of those. I'd probably be leaning towards the Jets, but it's not one of those ones I want to be necessarily betting my week on. Giants and the Vikes, and again, going after the Vikings right now is probably a pretty good idea. Texans and Raiders, and Texans is going to be one of those ones that are a weekly start, and you could probably roll them through your entire playoffs if they're somehow available, something like that right now. Because in my main money league, which is like pretty competitive, like everybody's dropping defenses every week. I think there's only like one guy that's holding on to a defense. That's Seattle at this point from the beginning. And he guessed right on that one. I think he drafted that one in that league. Lions and Vikings in week 17. That would be the premier one if you're going to be guessing that far ahead. So, like, in order for you to be guessing if the Lions are available with week 17, you got your bye. You're not worried about it. You're going to be stashing that one ahead of time. After waivers, they're going to be available. Steelers and Browns again. And again, this is one of those ones you got to be getting queued on. And I don't know if I would necessarily want to be chasing the Steelers and the Browns at this point. And you're planning that far ahead. It may be Dylan Gabriel again, so who knows? Saints and Titans. I think this is the dicey one. Like, you want to get cute and roll either of these defenses, and maybe you're gonna get like some type of defensive touchdown on that one. Like that's you. But again, you have to be already have your bye and planning ahead for who you're gonna be playing in your chip if you want to be doing something like really crazy like that. Patriots and Jets. Like, Patriots did look pretty good last night against the Giants. Giants and Raiders. Right here, you could be looking at that one down there. And again, there's no more buys, and we're guessing on this one. And then Seattle and the Panthers, and Seattle shouldn't be available in any leagues, but if they are, and you want to be planning that far ahead, you probably could just roll Seattle through your playoffs. All right. Moving over to the 49ers, not a lot to talk about with the 49ers in this one. There is a couple things. First of all, Slick Rick, he did have a red zone opportunity. And the reason why I bring up Slick Rick, because like he might end up being dropped in a lot of leagues. These are two really interesting matchups, week 16, week 17. So again, like, CMC, you bought what you're paid for. He's having I think he's like 800 yards receiving, 800 yards rushing at this point. Like, that's the guy you're rolling. Kittle's going to be Kittle at this point. Jennings is going to be somewhere as like a low end wide receiver 2, like high end wide receiver 3. And you're primarily going to be guessing on the ability to score touchdowns. I didn't write down any red zone on this, so this is like one red zone target, and it turns into a touchdown. Has been going that way, so it's not like he's red zone target guy for the offense. And then the other thing to be talking about with them would be Ayuk, and I didn't remember to talk about this last week. So last week it was speculated on. I think I did forget about this last week. Right now it's speculated that Brandon Ayuk may have played his last snap for the 49ers, and they're looking at voiding signing bonuses and stuff like that. And then it says like 12 hours ago, like, oh, they're not ruling him out playing this year. Like, some stuff is going on with him overall. So like your dynasty leagues, or if you're really speculating on him and you've been living under a rock, that's what's going on with him at this point. All right, moving on to the Bears, and they were able to, I guess, like somewhat upset the Eagles. I don't think it's like that big of an upset. It's more that the offense is a little bit more consistent down the line. And then if you're tracking like your Caleb Williams shares, and you think that you're going to be able to roll him in a particular week, these two Green Bay matchups, week 14, week 16, are going to be like very difficult to predict. Week 15 may not give you any type of spike. And then like week 17 is the one that you're gonna be like really rolling your Caleb Williams. So like, 2 quarterback leagues, or your ability to scream around Caleb Williams. It probably shouldn't be available in any leagues, but like if you that's how I look at it. DeAndre Swift in this one, 53% snaps. And then we'll just roll right over to Monongahela, and I'll just bring this up real quick. So 53% snaps, 18 for 125, touchdown, 2 for 1 for 13 in passing game. And then we talk about Monongahela, and like at this point, like, yeah, 45% snaps, 22 for 130, 1 touchdown, 1 target. 4 red zone went to him, and 1 red zone went to Swift. So like, Swift is definitely going to be more of the potential for the higher spike. If he's able to rip off like a outside the red zone run, and then you're getting like some type of passing work, and you can guess your scripts and all that stuff going on. Monongahela is just going to be the guy that's going to be able to potentially just be the guy who falls in the end zone, and like both of them are going to be rollable on a week-to-week basis. Probably like Monogamy is probably going to be closer to your low-end RB2, and then Swift is probably going to be more of a boom bust like RB2, something along that down the line. Wide receiver land, DJ Moore, he had 2 red zone opportunities in this one. Like Olamine had 1 and Rome had 1. And then everybody tracking on your Luther Burden right there. 51% snaps, which is consistent, 6 for 4 for 33 in this game. And Olamine, Zach Kazayas had 28% snaps, so that remains consistent. And again, outside of week 17, I'm probably not going to be guessing on any of that stuff. Tight end, 67% snaps, Cole Kmet, 59% Colston Loveland. And if you're one of those guys that are holding Loveland, and I can see doing this because like I may really think about doing this in one of my leagues is week 17, that San Francisco game. San Francisco's defense is all beat up, and you're gotta guess that like get a little cute, think that you're gonna get a spike, and again, tight ends can't break your heart. And if you can get, obviously if you can get like week 9 to happen again, and you can maybe guess it and be the guy that guessed it right, like you could talk about that. All right, Bengals back. Joe Burrow is back in this one. 24 for 46, 61, 2 touchdowns in this one. That's what you're hoping to get. Running back usage overall. I'll go back to Joe Burrow, and I'll just say like potential league winner with this stretch of games, because if you picked him up off your wire or something like that, or you held him to this point in the season, week 13, this was a game that you could say, hey, I'm going to get enough of a week out of rolling him. And then week 14, Buffalo, week 15, Baltimore, week 16, Miami. And now even week 17 with Jacoby Brissett, like you could get not just 40-degree days, but you could get like some type of like the spike week that a guy like Joe Burrow can do with all the receiving talent, where you're talking about like your ability to disproportionately have that advantage over your opponents, with Joe Burrow. So like even in my Jackson Dart land, I have like my main money league team name is after Jackson Dart's mom. At this point, what I would be talking about with like Joe Burrow is Joe Burrow may end up being my starting quarterback in that league because of this stretch of games that are going to be going on out there. All right. Chase Brown right here, he was down to 60% snaps. That's not surprising with Samaje Perine back in this one. 3 red zone opportunities went to him. 2 red zone targets went to him. Samaje Perine, on his 40% snaps, he had 4 red zone opportunities. They all came within the 10. Some really bad coaching went on with the Bengals in this one. He fumbled late. They brought him back in the game. They gave him the rock again to finish the game off. And like it really interesting situation that happened because the Baltimore Ravens were down with 2 touchdowns. They were inside like the red zone. They're just milking clock. There's no way for the Ravens to essentially win the game because all the Bengals have to do is either score a touchdown because the Ravens are going to let them score, or they're going to kick a field goal. And at that point, like you're getting really close to just like, hey, we're up by 2 scores. Like maybe we should just kneel this out. We should not do something stupid like give it to our running back and say like, dude, don't fumble it. And he fumbles it. And the reason why I bring this up is because when the Ravens signal their last time out, the only way that they could potentially win the game at that point is by causing a fumble because or getting a field goal block. Otherwise, the Bengals are going to run the clock out, or they're going to have to let them score touchdowns. So the moment that the Ravens call that last timeout, you're like they're playing to get the fumble at that point, because otherwise, if you don't get the fumble on that down, they run out of timeouts. And it's just like this baffles me with like the thought process, because as a coach, you got to be like, they're actually playing for the one opportunity to cause a fumble, and that's what occurred. So like I don't know how it goes on that one. Let's see. Taj Brooks was out again with a concussion. T. Higgins was out with a concussion. Yosivas, sometimes you don't need to know how the sausage was made in this one. Like, so he's at 94% snaps. He was the guy who stepped in. 2 for 1 for 29 and a touchdown, and you get your 40-degree day. That's how it works sometimes. Tinsley was at 67% snaps, 9 target. And the reason why I would bring up this with T. Higgins potentially missing again, if you're in your deep and dark enough like vampire leagues with like Tinsley doing like 67% snaps, 9 targets, that would be the guy that you could potentially think about. I wouldn't do it with your roster at that point. And then where's he at? Burton, still out, like with an ankle injury this time. Like if you're holding on to him in your deeper, darker leagues or something like that, your dynasty leagues, that's how it works out right now. Mike Gesicki, he's back, 28% snaps in this one, which is down, obviously. 2 red zone opportunities on top of that. So, like, yeah, again, this just becomes an issue of like, are you going to get cute enough to chase it in matchups that there could be a lot of scoring, and he may end up being the guy involved with this. Drew Sample's at 59% snaps, and Noah Fant was at 42% snaps, and I didn't write down any end zone. Gesicki is like really interesting if you can get gamble on that upside and you get right one of those weeks. It could happen. I'll just say. All right, Bills are up next, and they kind of just beat down the Steelers. So Josh Allen only had 123 air yards. So, take some of the stuff with a grain of salt when I start talking about it. James Cook had 144 yards rushing, and Ray Davis came in late with like 62 yards rushing to get an idea of like how the game flow was going on overall. Keon Coleman, Ray Mayer, he was at 45% snaps after like basically being like a healthy scratch for 2 weeks in a row. Elijah Moore was released. Shavers was at 39% snaps in the game, so like tracking that, good luck. Gabe Davis was at 58% snaps, so again, like would expect that you were gonna get a little bit more of a bump from Gabe Davis, but, and here's your but, because it was basically just a beatdown, like I can also see that the snap share may not why there's we can actually speculate why the snap share didn't go up as much as we were expecting it to go up again, and then you are looking at like that stretch of games with the Buffalo Bills where you're gonna get potential shootout with the Bengals, the Pats, and then Philadelphia could go either way when it comes to these two teams. But like Cleveland, you're imagining that's probably not going to be a very conducive game to a lot of scoring, but at least with like Cincinnati and the Pats, if you're in deep enough leagues and you want to go after them. The other one, and I got to go to the Saints, is Brandon Cooks, 23% snaps, 1 for 1 for 13. So again, like I probably would not be getting cute with him until maybe week 15 if we see something with week 14. If you really think that you can get something out of that in some type of situation that goes on. And then Curtis Samuel's put on IR, and that's about it. Dalton Kincaid was out with a hamstring. I go back to the Bills right here, and then to see how bad the game flow was, the blocking tight end, the rookie Jackson Hall, 70% snaps in the game. And then Dawson Knox, and this would be like if, buts, and maybes. If you get another week of Dalton Kincaid being out and then Dawson Knox doing like 72% snaps attached to this offense, maybe you'll deep enough, dark enough leagues like you're looking at like Cincinnati and the Patriots again. Like you could speculate that there might be some value to guessing right on Dawson Knox. There's probably some other guys like your Darren Waller or something like that I'd probably be a little bit more interested in down the line. So all right, Denver Broncos right here. See, overtime win over the Redskins, and the Redskins went for 2 in overtime, didn't get it. That's how the game flow went overall in this one. RJ Harvey right here, he was at 47% snaps, not surprising in this one. 5 red zone, 1 red zone target in the game. That's how we get there. Beatty was at 26% snaps. He had 2 red zone targets, and then Jaleel McLaughlin was at 19%, 1 red zone target. So like, there you go. Like, not in the best stat line, but like all you care about is chasing those touchdowns sometimes, and you got that. Cortland Sutton was at 2 red zone opportunities. He scored on one of those 2 red zone opportunities. Give you like pretty close to a 40-degree day, a little bit over that. Troy Franklin was down 53% snaps, and I bring this up because like, at this point, I probably am not worried about Troy Franklin being rolled against me, and I am also not going to be concerned. Like, I'm not going to be rolling him. And the big reason behind that is right here with Pat Bryant, up to 70% snaps in the game, 7 targets overall, and 1 red zone opportunity, obviously. So, like, that would be the guy, like, if I was going to get cute now and there's any consistency going on in the offense, it would probably be Pat Bryant that I would be guessing on over Troy Franklin, speculating on those higher upside guys. So like Pat Bryant stepping into that role probably like removes your ability to be chasing some type of spike with Troy Franklin with overall usage. And I didn't write down any air yards, so I think like Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant were about like 60 air yards or something like that overall. All right. And then the other thing, and this is probably like just like how fantasy works sometimes, 54% snaps for Evan Ingram, 9 for 6 for 79. And this one, he did have 2 red zone opportunities, only 40 air yards, so kind of a little bit more of like the that yak guy that he has been before for the offense. Not the Broncos, but just in general, this is how he's functioned, not like a vertical threat or anything like that. All right, Browns right here. So I will just say like this is not a real football channel when it comes to Shaquille Shakur. So like if you're wondering about that, like. against 49ers. You could argue with him that you may get some matchups like the 49ers or the Titans or something like that where the defenses may allow for a certain amount of spike week. But why I would bring this up is like if he's not giving you the nimbly bimbly that we would generally like, and he's just not kind of that level of athlete that you would necessarily think that he's going to be able to like tuck it and really can take over a game and get like your design quarterback runs and stuff like that. Automatically, that makes me less interested in him. The other thing to look at is the Browns are just generally going to function more as a conservative offense and not a good conservative offense on top of that. So you're probably not going to get enough to have some type of multiple touchdown pass week with like all the passing yards. And then again, the Browns have no incentive to like make it a fantasy friendly game. And I'm going to say this, and he's going to go out there and be quarterback one this week. But that's how I would generally look at it. So like whatever Shaquille Shakur's impressing Browns like a day ago on Sleeper, I don't care. And there's no guarantee like he's going to hold the job with Dylan Gabriel coming out. So like that's my take on him. Once again, running backs. Dylan Sampson, he was injured right now with a calf, so like down to 19% snaps chasing that one. And I will say with Judkins right now, he was at 60% snaps in the game. I could see the Browns looking at full bell cow Judkins, if Sampson misses a week, and I could also see that you're going to get pretty close to some type of serviceable desperation RB2 with Jerome Ford. Like, so he was only at 22% snaps. So I could see him jumping a little bit in snap share with one less mouth to feed. And I could also see like the Browns is going like, hey, let's see what we got with Judkins, giving him the full load, because it doesn't matter. And I don't think they're necessarily going to stick with Shakur. I don't have very much to say about the wide receivers for the Browns at this point, and the tight ends. Fannin is probably like a low end tight end one, and you might be able to guess that like because he's tight end, there is going to be a week where you could put it all together and you could get like 20, 30 point week, because he's just the guy that takes over the offense. So 92% snaps for him versus Njoku all the way down to 51% snaps. So that's how I would see it, but I think this is like not very likely. And then like Fannin, if you just want to take your 6 points and then hopefully get the opportunity for him to score a touchdown in any given week, that's how I would view that. All right. Buccaneers would be up next, and I do think I have something written down about the stretch of games that you're going to be looking at for the Buccaneers. And again, they have no incentive to care about your fantasy lineup. So like the Saints, the Falcons, and the Panthers may end up being like very not fantasy friendly games. And then the one that you can maybe start talking about with the Buccaneers would be Miami. And you're guessing at this point, like, there's a possibility that they could at least win like two or excuse me, they can win at least three, if not just sweep these games. And it depends like how inconsistent like the Panthers are and the Dolphins are. They just may not necessarily need to be like scoring a lot of points. You can see like with the 49ers and the Browns this week, like there are certain teams that are just going to be like, yeah, we're not going to beat ourselves against a team that we should win. And that's kind of what my thought process would be with the Buccaneers in this one, because they were able to hold on against the Cardinals. Yeah, hung on to beat the Cardinals, where I wrote down my notes in this one. So Bucky Irving, he's back, 52% snaps in this game. 3 red zone carries went to him. 1 red zone target went to Rachaad White on his 38% snaps. And then Sean Tucker was down to 15% snaps and 2 carries. All right, a lot of stuff to talk about with the wide receivers, and I did see this one when I was just perusing around. So Jalen McMillan could actually practice this week. That might open things up for, say, like a Buka down the line, and you're waiting on like Mike Evans. And theoretically, if Mike Evans is going to like actually could return to practice also this week, so like take some of this stuff with a grain of salt, and like if they're going to be coming back. And again, these are games that they have like pretty much no incentive to really try and beat themselves down the line. So Buka was at 85% snaps in this game, 84 air yards to Godwin's 45 air yards overall. And then Godwin all the way up, coming back to 66% snaps, 5 for 3 for 78. 2 red zone targets in this game. He dropped one of them. So like now you maybe again, if you're getting cute and he's available, maybe Godwin's going to be more of the floor play and Ibuka's going to be more of the ceiling, because if the air yards land and they're taking away one guy, then another guy's going to be open, that type of thing going on. Sterling Shepard was down to 26% snaps, and Tez Johnson was already down to, or all the way down to 57% snaps with Godwin coming in, and you're just going to see him dwindle more and more so everybody else gets healthy. Not anything to say about the tight ends. All right, Cardinals. And one of the things that I will start off with, like Jacoby Brissett, and like looking at your schedule, if you're in one of those leagues and you're just like, hey, like, yeah, I'm just gonna roll him. Like week 17 looks really pretty. The Rams and the Texans are not predicted, or I would not predict to be very fantasy friendly games for the Cardinals because those are pretty good defenses at that point. And then your Falcons could go either way at that point if you're going to be looking at that stuff. Running back, I didn't see any news on Trey Benson at this point. And then everybody's talking about like Zonovan Knight, like if he's available, go pick him up. 48% snaps compared to your 52% snaps for Michael Carter. I didn't write down any red zone, so like it doesn't really interest me at that point. So like, yeah, if you want to be chasing your Zonovan Knight in the games that maybe you can't predict are going to be very good because the Rams and Texans are really good, 11 for 62, 3 for 3 for 36 and a touchdown, and like a fumble lost also. More interesting, especially if they're going to get beat down and they're going to be throwing a lot, is Marvin Harrison goes down now with a heel, and that would probably push your ability to be rolling Michael Wilson because you probably got him for free at this point. Or if he's available, you can put him back in there and go like he's going to get like double-digit targets or something like that down the line. That could happen at this point. And yeah, that's about all I got for the Cardinals. Chargers right here. So Justin Herbert, he I guess broke a finger. He had surgery. It's his non-throwing hand, expected to play. So like if you're going to be not a very good week against Philadelphia, not a very good week against the Chiefs, and then week 17 obviously not a good week. That's a pretty brutal stretch of defenses right now, and you're pretty much only going to be really thinking about rolling Chargers week 16 against the Cowboys, and I'll get back to that here in a second. So Amarian Hampton was a scratch this week with that ankle. Again, it says right there, expected to return this week, week 14. So obviously you're holding on to Vidal. And just generally how we've seen everybody else work, I could see Vidal having like 2/3 of the work as they bring what's his face Hampton along. So I could see like you're gonna get one more week out of him, but like outside the fact that the Eagles just got run on this week, like I don't know how much I would really love that matchup overall, but like you can get that, and I probably would not be dropping him in any leagues. If he's available, he should be picked up, especially like if from a strategy standpoint to make sure that he's on the bottom of your bench and you're just not letting like a potential league winner. Even though that's a pretty brutal stretch outside of the Cowboys. Wide receivers function relatively consistently in this game. Where is he at? Trey Harris right here, 51% snaps, and this was a beatdown. So like maybe overall, if we get the right or the wrong script, I should say, like it's just going to cut into some of the other guys. And there's Ladd McConkey. He scored a touchdown pass this week. And the reason why I bring this up is with your Gadsden shares, 70% snaps. Again, this was kind of a beatdown. 2 for 1 for 27 is 33 error. Again, this is the difference with some of these guys, like moving him or using him a little bit more vertically down the field. The other one, I think it was a drop, and it was like a 6-yard yak or 6-yard error or something like that. So like you're looking at the potential if you get that spike week against Dallas. So that's how I would view him. Is I'm absolutely going to be rolling him in. And again, my main money league, he is my starting tight end. So like I can eat week 14 and 15 and really just like you'll hope that he is the guy that's going to be the beneficiary of a shootout in that game with the Cowboys. All right, let's see. Chiefs running backs, we'll go to them. So they lost against the Cowboys. I believe that's what was going on in this one. Yeah, the Cowboys, they lost that game against the Cowboys. Running back, so Pacheco was back. He was at 30% snaps in this game, 64% snaps for Kareem Hunt. 3 red zone carries, 1 red zone target. All of the red zone went to him right now, and I can imagine that it wouldn't be surprising to me that Pacheco and Hunt are going to go back into that split of usage overall, but like Hunt would probably be still the guy that I would be betting on if you want to be chasing red zone opportunities, if you're going to be holding on to it. Brashad Smith was down to 6% snaps in the game, so like any possibility you're going to get Jared McKinnon is probably like very limited at this point. And I would probably say like part of the reason why like you ain't going to get Jared McKinnon out of Brashard Smith is we could talk about like Rashid Rice in this game. 4 more red zone opportunities overall. So like, yeah, there you go on that one. So just he's the red zone opportunity guy at this point. Like he's Jared McKinnon. All right. Colts lost a close one to the Texans, and I'll just say that like I have like predictive bench because the Texans may be like a really good defense or the best defense in football right now. So even though generally speaking, it's not saying that like where's he at? The Colts are turning back into a pumpkin. It's just one of those ones like are you cute enough to bench guys in like very bad matchups, especially when there's a lot of mouth feed because you want to be guessing on shootouts where everybody can get fed and you can get your like 40-degree days, like even if you miss out on one of your spike weeks or something like that. So again, uh, there's that Seattle defense week 14. And then Jacksonville has been kind of all over the place, very inconsistent, and 49ers like have also been inconsistent. So you probably got a few more weeks of rolling your Colts toys, and you may want to be thinking about benching everybody week 15. And that means like Jonathan Taylor, because again, if he's not going to be a focal point of the passing game like your CMC, now you're saying like, hey, maybe. And I ain't saying that I would be the guy that would bench Jonathan Taylor, because I wouldn't be, but like I would understand the mindset behind that if you do that. So with your wide receivers at this point, I don't think I looked yet. Giddens was still out. With your wide receivers, and I think Alec Pierce was the guy that got home, 5 for 4 for 78 and a touchdown overall. So that would be the idea behind it. And then like Tyler Warren to score a touchdown. So he did, tight end, can't break your heart. But overall, like I could see this week against these bad matchups, like going like, yeah, it's not a Michael Pittman week, even though he's probably going to be very close to the league winner at the price that you paid for him overall. And the same thing was like your Josh Downs, like you're trying to guess which guy is going to either give you a touchdown to give you a 40-degree day, or he's going to be the focal point of the passing game to give you a 40-degree day, or you get it all together and you get that like a week winning week out of one of these guys. All right. Redskins are going to be next. Right here. So with I don't know, they're scary Terry right now. So he's back from his quads at 51% snaps. He had 14 targets. He had 212 air yards in this game, 5 red zone opportunities. So like, yeah, at that point, like definitely changes the offense with him in there. See, Debo had 1 red zone opportunity and Burks had 1 red zone opportunity. It was a really pretty catch on his 1 opportunity that he had. The running back room, so like our hopes that we're going to get a Bill season are pretty much dashed at this point, 14% snaps. C-Rod right down here, he was at 41% snaps, 3 red zone opportunities, 1 red zone target, or 3 red zone carries, 1 red zone target. Again, like game flow, I will just say with him, if he's going to have the opportunity to score a touchdown and he's going to be like, the touchdown, more of a touchdown dependent RB2, and it has to be the right game flow. Maybe the Vikings, maybe the Giants, like the game will be not out of hand. Who knows what the Dallas game is, and the Eagles could go either way. Like you probably could be rolling them as like a low end RB2 and feeling like you can control the scripts of those games a little bit better from a predictive standpoint. McNichols right here. He was at 49% snaps in this game. And again, to give an idea of like how up and down the game was, he's the passing down guy, 49% snaps also in the game. And he did have a red zone target. All right. Nothing to say about the tight ends for the Redskins. And then you got 13 targets. 13 targets, 10 receptions for 106 for Zach Ertz. So like, again, this kind of was a good game flow. And I don't know if you're going to necessarily be able to predict that with some of these games outside of maybe Dallas. Like you could, if you want to be chasing something like that again with Ertz, the rest of them, I don't necessarily think are like the greatest matchups overall. All right. Cowboys. Let's see. I said come back against the Eagles, and that's not what happened because they beat the Chiefs. So I got to remove that from my notes. All right. First and foremost, like Javonte Williams, he was at 78% snaps overall in this game. 4 red zone targets went to him, or 4 red zone carries, 1 red zone target. He tugged on the red zone target. And then what everybody else may be thinking right now is with Malik Davis, 13% snaps, 3 for 47 and a touchdown. One of his 3 outside of the 43-yarder that he ripped off for a touchdown was a red zone opportunity. So like maybe you're guessing Cuff at this point. I don't think you're going to be looking at split backfield when it comes to these guys. And then the wide receivers, like no news on Pickens, or right there 7 hours ago. Full practice on Tuesday with whatever's going on with him. If you're worried about your league winner, that's going on. All right, Dolphins. And this one, and they were able to hold off the Saints coming back on them. Let's see, not really anything to say about the running backs. You see Ollie Gordon was at 27% snaps compared to like A-Chain, and Jalen Wright in this one, he was at 10% snaps. So like maybe Ollie Gordon's going to be the cuff. I imagine might end up being a little bit more of like a 50-50 split between those two guys. And then the other one to be looking at is Darren Waller is back. 47% snaps, 3 for 2 for 47 in this one. Did have a red zone target on top of that. So I can imagine this might, his snap share may go up slightly but I don't really care as much about that as long as he's getting like vertical targets and he's getting design work and he's getting red zone. Like now you can start getting a little bit fun. The Jets and the Steelers may not be the funnest weeks, but definitely week 16, week 17, you can start talking about like a little bit more fun. So like if he's available, and especially if you're going to be, planning ahead that far into your playoffs, that you can be trying to stream a tight end or something like that available. All right, Eagles. Nothing to talk about with the Eagles. So there you go. That makes it really easy with them. Nothing that I saw that was really worth talking about. I think there was actually. Let me see who they play. If you can try and guess the weeks that the Eagles may actually, they're going to have to be able to run the football. So like you may get that against the Raiders because Raiders are particularly bad, and then maybe some of the other weeks that might turn into a little bit of a shootout with week 17, maybe Buffalo. It's week 16 right now. We'll talk about like Redskins later. That may actually end up turning a little bit more of a game. The Eagles defense has been like, particularly good, even though they did not look very good against the Bears. Like that would be just my general rambling thoughts on that one. Falcons this week, and I'll just go to your running back and Bijan, 23 for 142 and a touchdown, 7 for 551, and they lost against the Jets. Algier, he vultures another touchdown. It was a 1-yarder. 3 red zone opportunities went to him. 4 went to Bijan in this game. Wide receiver room, Drake London may play this week. I would imagine that you're looking probably week 16, he will play. Week 15, you may get an opportunity to be rolling him out there right now. Like week 14, even if he plays this week, I don't know how much I really want to be trusting him if I don't need to. But if that's the best guy I got, like I could maybe see that, and you're probably gonna be looking at like your practice participation, and you probably want to see him like get up to like a full before you like kind of go after that. And again, this is like week 14, like not the best matchup anymore against like Seattle at this rate. And then Kyle Pitts, again, like one of these things, like vacated targets tend to go to running backs first and then tight end second, and there you go, like 8 for 7 for 82 overall. If you're getting cute, I wouldn't even say cute. I would just say like that's probably like a weekly roll at this point. I will talk a little bit about Jackson Dart because I was watching this game because I needed enough points to clinch my bye week in this league. So I did see on the Twitters that they were talking about like Jackson Dart's a number of design runs was all the way down. He got smoked on the sideline also on one of the plays. So like I don't know if you're going to get the consistency of, again, the nimbly bimbly and the goal line fullback that was basically like allowing him to be a league winner. I don't know if that's going to happen again coming out of the bye, and you're probably also not going to get like enough of the passing volume to make him be able to win you a week with like multiple touchdown passes at this point. Like that's why I would say like a little dicey. And maybe you're going to look at like some of these defenses down the line that may allow him to give you the ability, especially like week 17 against the Raiders, coming out of the bye. Otherwise, I probably would be pivoting again like Joe Burrow. I did pick up Joe Burrow in both my leagues. That's how I would look at that. All right. Running back usage. So first and foremost, like Tyrone Tracy says he's fine after suffering hip contusion, whatever. I heard he's carted off. It says like carted off right there on the field. So he was at 49% snaps in the game. And then Devin Singletary was controlling the backfield regardless of him getting knocked out. So he does 12 for 68, a touchdown, 3 for 3 for 34 in this one. And so you may get like full bell cow if Tyrone Tracy misses any time on that one. Nothing really to talk about with the rest of the receivers for the Giants. The one thing I would talk about, like Theo Johnson did get 8 targets, like that, moving closer to like that unicorn status. So like maybe, especially if they're not designing the quarterback runs, like you could theoretically like flirt with that. So definitely if he's dropped or something like that, I would be interested that you could get that all together as like the number one attached to an offense. All right. Jags cruised against the Titans is what I have written down. I have week 14 and week 17 listed. So that Colts game could turn into a shootout. So like you're rolling everything that you got, and then they play the Colts again in week 17. That's why like those would be 2 weeks that like you're definitely looking at rolling out like every Jaguar you could, and like hopefully those turn into like just 30-30 type of barn burner or something like that overall. Again, remember that they were rolling along against the Titans in this one. So Travis Etienne was at 49% snaps. And then if he's available in your leagues, Tootin, 29% snaps, 8 for 17, and a touchdown, 1 for 1 for 2. But all 5 red zone opportunities went to him in this game. None went to ETN. And then Allen was at 24% snaps. Brian Thomas was back in this one, 75% snaps. Where's he at? Parker Washington was knocked out with a hip. And then go to Jacoby Myers right here, right there. 92% snaps, 6 for 6 for 90, and a red zone tug. So there you go. Like that would be the one that's like most interesting. Like as soon as the trade happened, if he was available, I don't think he was available in any of my leagues. So, guys are stingy like that. And then with Parker Washington getting knocked out with that hip, it probably would move Brenton Strange up. You could at least talk about him as being the number 3 in the offense at this point. With everything else going on. So like 84% snaps, 4 for 3 for 45 and a touchdown. So I would probably definitely week 14 and week 17, maybe week 17, if Parker Washington would come back, it would downgrade him, but like week 14 probably would be rolling him out there. Trying to catch that. Let's see. Moving on to the Jets, and I'll talk about Tyrod. That's not the guy I want. Tyrod Taylor does not disappoint with the upgrading of the toys. And then again, because he has the theoretical Nimble Bimble and he falls in the touchdown or the end zone, you can think about streaming him. And again, you're just guessing matchups. So 14, 15, maybe 17. Again, that's going to be dicey. The New England's got a good defense. Probably week 14, week 15, you could look at streaming him. I think there might be better options. It depends on how what the meta is going to be in your league right now. Breece Hall was at 88% snaps, so there you go. And then we can talk about the 2 guys that are not on sleeper attached to the Jets. So Adonai Mitchell, that would be the guy that everybody's talking about, go out and get. 86% snaps, 12 for 8 for 102 and a touchdown. And again, you're just trying to track weeks. And 14, 15, maybe 16, probably 17, I probably wouldn't be rolling him. But you could probably get 2 serviceable weeks out of him. And the other thing is I definitely don't want to be seeing them on anybody else's lineup at this point if they're trying to be chasing any of that down the line. And then going to the Eagles, I believe it is, with Mechie. 97% snaps, 8 targets. So there you go. Again, probably 40-degree day versus, can you get that spike with the 2 guys as we talked about last week. And nothing to talk about with Mason Taylor. Let's see. The Lions lost to the Packers is what I have written down right here. And let's see. Wide receivers is the main thing we're going to be looking at. The Sun God, he's down with an ankle. It says unsure if he will play Thursday, whatever that means, on sleeper. 6% snaps. And then a little interesting, Isaac Tesla goes all the way up to 92% snaps, 2 for 2 for 35 and a touchdown. Week 14, week 15, you could talk about some pretty good possibility for some shootouts. Definitely week 14 if you want to get crazy enough to be chasing that one. JMO, he may end up being a league winner depending on how long the ankle is going to be for the Sun God. 94% snaps, 10 for 7 for 144 and touchdown. If they're just going to be making him be the number 1 on the offense, this is one of those things you can't predict between Laporta going down and the Sun God going down. And now you're just okay, he is the number 1 attached to the offense. And again, generally speaking, you go the running backs would do it first. But he's the last guy, and then maybe you're chasing your Tesla. And then tight end, if you're really wondering, it was Ross Dwelly that ended up being the starting tight end for the Lions, and I probably wouldn't be chasing that one before, if you're going to be doing that. With Brock Wright looking like he's going to be out a little bit extended time with the neck. All right, Packers right here. Josh Jacobs was at 54% snaps coming back from that knee. Not really surprising this one. You didn't get any type of real usage for Emmanuel Wilson. So unless you're cuffing, talking about being able to predict Chuba and at the same time not being able to predict Emmanuel Wilson being in some type of split backfield in this one. And we have seen Josh Jacobs function in this 50% snaps range. If they're trying to keep some of the load off of him overall. Matthew Golden was out. It says could play week 14. You do you on that one. We'll talk about the rest of the wide receivers. No real news on Jaden Reed still seeking medical clearance, whatever that means. If you're chasing that one, go down to Christian Watson. He was at 73% snaps, 10 for 4 for 80 and a touchdown. And my co-manager in one of my leagues was yeah, we should have rolled him. 186 air. Wicks on only 49% snaps because they don't care. 7 for 6 for 94 and 2 touchdowns because again they don't care when looked like he was going to be a league winner last year, and it just didn't turn out that way. So I guess he could catch a football. Romeo Dobbs, also red zone target guy, 84% snaps, 4 for 20, and a touchdown. 3 red zone opportunities went to him. He tugged on one of them. There you go. Let's see. And then Luke Musgrave is up to 59% snaps. I don't care. All right, Panthers, and this is kind of interesting. So the Panthers, they upset the Rams in this one. Bryce Young throws 3 touchdown passes. There were 0 recorded red zone opportunities as the entire team for the Rams or for the Panthers. That's not how they won the game. They had like a return touchdown. I think Tet scored a 43-yarder, and was his face rolling down here. Coker scored like a 33-yard or something like that. That's how they were able to get that done. Now, running back usage is a little interesting. So Chuba, he's up to 59% snaps, so it does look like he's the guy. I also saw that he is more of the design passing work guy, or I shouldn't say the design passing work guy, the passing down back between these two guys, and you can see that like 19 total opportunities went to him. He scored on a 35-yard touchdown. Rico Dowdle, he's down to 42% snaps, but again, he has 20 combined opportunities in this one. So like it probably is like a 1A and 1B. They're going to be coming out of the bye, and then it's just like looking at matchups. Week 15, week 16, I'd probably be rolling both of them. Week 17, you're getting to the point where like you may be benching both of them at that point if you make it all the way there, and you're going to get a little fun. Tet was down to 73% snaps. He did score like late, salvage his day on a 43-yarder. And then Leggett was down to 40, or consistent with 67% snaps, I should say. And then Coker, he was at 55% snaps. And again, I was expecting that he would jump back up there, but he didn't. 6 for 4 for 74 touchdown. That gets a little interesting, especially like week 15, week 16. He may end up being the guy, even maybe over Tet at that point. And then all 3 tight ends were used. I don't really care about them, but. All right, Patriots, and they just beat down the Giants on Monday night, and we'll talk about the 2 guys that everybody wants to talk about, like Ramondre Stevenson, 58% snaps, 12 for 40, 3 for 40 in this game, and there's Hendo, 49% snaps, 11 for 67, 4 for 19, and it gets even funner when you break down this stuff. So Ramondre, he was doing the 2-minute before the half, and he ripped off like a 36-yarder, put him in like field goal range. 3 red zone opportunities between these 2 guys. There's 2 red zone carries for both of them and 1 red zone target, right? So I was watching the ticker in this game on Hendo. He also got opportunities within the 5-yard line, and Henderson also closes the game out when you would think that they would bring in the dump truck. No, it was a Henderson all the way down there. Like, he ripped off like a 26-yarder. Like, yeah, I could not really like guess between these 2 guys. So early on in the game, Ramondre was like took over the usage. It looked like Hendo was not going to be able to get me my points that I needed in that league, and then he was able to put like again a lot of this together like later in the game on that final drive to like ice it. That's how it went down. So like, hey, yeah, guess on that one, and then coming out of your bye. Like there are some good opportunities week 15, week 16 that you could get into particular scripts where they're going to be scoring and they're going to be able to use both these guys. But I don't know if you can guess like red zone opportunity with Ramondre or not red zone or passing down work with Henderson. They don't care about your fantasy lineup. That makes it really easy to just break this down. Now, the only real guy that I would be interested in rolling for the Patriots, because he's a tight end and they can't break your heart. Hunter Henry had 4 red zone opportunities on top of 6 for 4 for 73. And then moving over to the wide receivers, if you're wondering, it's functioning like pretty much how we thought. 48% snaps went to Diggs. 75% snaps went to Boutte. He tugged on one of his red zone opportunity that he had on the 75% snaps. Mac Hollins was at 75% snaps, which again, this is relatively consistent with whatever's been going on with them. Pop Douglas was at like 30-something% snaps, 34% snaps. Again, this is the design usage. They know how they want to use their guys. They don't care about you. And then Kyle Williams gets up to 22% snaps. He scored a 33-yarder in this one. And I did see some belly aching about it not being a touchdown, but I don't really care because it's not a real football channel. All right. Raiders are going to be next. I don't have a lot to say about the Raiders. They're struggling, obviously, on offense. Wide receivers are going to be chasing all this stuff. I'll go over and I will talk about Tyler Lockett first. This is part of the reason why I don't care. 52% snaps in this game. Michael Mayer was out, so the expectation that these numbers will change if Michael Mayer comes back and they go back to running like 2 tight ends. There's Deontay Thornton being out with a concussion, so you can expect him to miss a couple of weeks. The only guy that you'll really be chasing in wide receivers is Trey Tucker remains consistent. 96% snaps. Jack Beck got up to 56% snaps. That's probably more of a dynasty thing than anything else that I'd be chasing any of the stuff that's going to be available out there. And then, you get your victory rack right there. 2 touchdowns for Brock Bowers in this game, even though it was pretty ugly the rest of the way around. All right. And I think Genty was at like 90-something% snaps. So I don't really care if you're wondering, because they're bad, and that's just how it's going to go sometimes. All right. Rams right here. And again, this was a surprise, like an upset. Again, this would be one of the ones that you could look at, like with the defense and the game flow. You're expecting it to work a certain way, and it just didn't work out that way. So if Blake Corum is available in any of your leagues right now on the wire, only 33% snap, 7 for 81, and a touchdown right there. It says, I didn't even see the Blake Corum, one of fantasy football's most. Yeah, he shouldn't be available, but if he is, 2 red zone opportunities on him. He tugged on one of them. Kyron Williams left the game with an ankle, but he did come back in. He did have 5 red zone opportunities. He tugged on one of them. And the reason why is, like, this is one of those things, like, speculate in the right direction that, like, magically he doesn't play and you've already had him on your roster. That's how I break that down. The other thing that I would just generally look at, because this is funny, Devontae Adams right now, he currently has 14 touchdowns. So there you go. And then the other thing with tight ends, we were kind of tracking this with Colby Parkinson. Snap share remains relatively consistent, 67% snaps, 5 for 4 for 27. He did have two more red zone opportunities. So again, if you're chasing those red zones, there you go. Ravens stuff to talk about. I may have missed this last week because there just isn't all the stuff that I look for. So Justice Hill goes on IR with a neck issue. Derrick Henry, he's still going to be hovering around like that 40 to 60% snaps. That's consistent with what he's been doing, especially in a game that they kind of fell behind against the Bengals. Now you can start speculating on what's going to go on with the rest of the running back usage. So Keaton Mitchell, he goes out there, he scores 13% snaps, 2 for 19 and a touchdown, 3 for 2 for 12. And here's your butt. Where is he at? Rasheen Ali, 48% snaps, 4 for 17. So again, probably the cuff is going to be Ali to Henry. And then Keaton Mitchell may be the guy who's going to take over that Justice Hill role, which means like desperation RB2, you may get the opportunity for him to have some type of like work and score a touchdown. That's how I break these two guys down. So if you're in certain leagues and Ali is available, yeah, you're cuffing, with that injury. And then, if you're going to be chasing any type of like, I'm in such a deep league that I need to be rolling out there, it would be like you're going to get some type of like work with Keaton Mitchell with the uptick with Justice Hill being out. And then last thing to talk about with them would be Isaiah Likely, 52% snap, 6 for 5 for 95, and a fumble lost. No comment, not a real channel. But again, like this is one of those ones like Bengals, Isaiah Likely is going to be in line to be in that consideration for like wide receiver 3, even though he's a tight end. So like you could talk about being able to predict that type of outcome, and it could have been a touchdown in that one. So week 15 again, week 16, you can start being cute enough to be thinking about like your Isaiah Likely's if you want to be trying to guess on that ahead of time. All right, Saints, and we'll go to where's he at? Show. So they did come back late in this game. So 26 to 30, 38, 2 touchdowns. It did look like they were going to get smacked around by the Dolphins, and then he was able to haul them back. So now we can talk about like, is not that I would be rolling Tyler Show, is like, can he keep the offense functional enough to be getting a little fun with the toys that are going to be going out there? I did see early on, as I was watching the ticker on the Saints, that like Evan Hull did outtouch Neal early in the game, but that just was how it functioned. 82% snaps, 14 for 47, 3 for 3 for 22. There weren't any red zone opportunities as a team for the Saints, so that's not trackable. Evan Hull did do 18% snaps, so I was a little worried that it was going to be more of a split backfield. No, I imagine that you're going to get like full Devin Neal until Alvin Kamara comes back, and I went and looked, and there's no timeline on Alvin Kamara, so you're at least going to do like one more week of your rental when it comes to Devin Neal on that one. The other one, wide receiver room, you're looking at Vele at 88% snaps, 8 for 8 for 93 and a touchdown. So when he was functioning, I think it was, let's see, I forget who he was playing with at this point. Denver. So when orange jersey. When he was playing with Denver, he was used more as like a big slot. So I did go up and look at this. So on his right there, 8 targets that he had, it was 87 air. So like more of like normal wide receiver usage overall with him. And I just wrote that, man, I don't know. Because again, you're like, Jawan Johnson, I think, had like 9 targets in this game overall, and then I think they took away Olave in this game, 7 targets to have a touchdown. So now you're trying to like deep enough leagues. Like, am I going to be looking at trying to chase Vele, even though that's a pretty nice stat line overall? Like, I just don't know if you're going to be able to predict that. I mean, Tampa Bay and the Panthers, maybe you could see those games turn into a little bit of a shootout. But overall, but like that would be the extent of it. There's probably better guys. I would have to miss on like an Adonai Mitchell or something like that to be like really going and chasing that for the Saints at that point because of the situation. But that's part of the reason why I talk about like Show and whether or not we can say that there's going to be any type of consistency enough to say that he can support multiple pass catchers. All right, let's see. Seahawks are next in this one, and they were able to blow out right there. So Sam Darnold ankle, whatever. They were able to blow out the Vikings, which is not surprising in this one. And I think they had like 28-point defense. They have 32-point defense for the Seattle Seahawks. So that's one of those ones where like the thought process saying that they're so bad that they'll just blow the other team out. Like when they have a defense, it's like, yeah, we'll just win it for our offense. We don't even need them to show up. So you're not going to be able to get that. So that partially explains like why you get like the Jackson Smith and the Jigba down week. And again, like nobody is going to tell you to bench your Jackson Smith and Jigba, but it explains why the down week was there. It's because they're that much better than the other team that they're playing. They just didn't generally need to do that. So like week 15, again, you might get a shootout. I think Atlanta's going to be very difficult. Week 16 also is going to be another one that's going to be like potentially leaning towards not having to getting your league winner type week out of JSN. And then week 17 is probably going to be very difficult to predict overall because the Panthers have been all over the place. If you're wondering about that. Running back usage, Kenneth Walker, 55% snaps. I think it's even funnier because they're the Seahawks and they don't care about your fantasy lineups. Zach Charbonnet, 39% snaps. 4 red zone opportunities went to Sharbs. He tugged on one of them. Only one went to Walker. So are your hopes that you're like, oh, they're finally gonna let Kenneth Walker be the guy? Yeah, no, they don't care. Let's see, and I don't have anything to say about anything else that was going on for them. Steelers, they were beat down, I think, by the Bills in this one, right here. Yeah. Buffalo Bills, and then you're looking at 56% snaps for Jaylen Warren, 42% snaps to Kenneth Gainwell. Jaylen Warren had one more red zone opportunities than Gainwell, so you're pretty much looking at like split backfield, pretty close to that, like slightly favoring Warren. Gainwell may still have value, and then you're guessing like can you get weeks where the Steelers offense is going to function at this point? They're pretty banged up. I will go to the Vikings right here. So we can talk about the Steelers because Adam Thielen, he gets released, and then they picked him up off of waivers because that just shows you how bad the wide receiver situation is for the Steelers right now. That they went out and they got like old man Adam Thielen to be going on out there, so I'd be tracking that one. And then the other one that was a little interesting, and we've kind of been playing around with Darnell Washington. I probably would not be doing this, but 79% snaps, 4 for 2 for 45. But that stretch of games, Baltimore, Miami, and the Lions, that is interesting. But I don't think it's good. Yeah, Jonnu Smith is going to get like 6 red zone opportunities, and he's going to have like 90% snaps next week. So I probably would not be chasing that if I didn't have to. All right, Texans defense right here, they're elite. So running back usage overall. So I did go look this up. Woody Marks right here may have a foot injury. Nick Chubb, 24% snaps, 3 red zone opportunities. He tugged on one of them. Marks had 54% snaps. He had 3 red zone opportunities. Again, if buts and maybes because of the situation of that foot. You can be looking at Nick Chubb, some type of usage if Woody Marks is going to be missing any time if Nick Chubb is available on your wire right now. And then wide receivers, not named Nico Collins right here. So Xavier Hutchinson goes all the way back up to 55% snaps in this game. And then where's he at? Christian Kirk, he's at 49% snaps, 0 usage after 6 for 5 for 54 and a touchdown. Knoll was at 24% snaps because, again, they don't like us to have any fun whatsoever. And then Higgins, and this is why I get all the way to talking about Higgins in this one. 58% snaps, consistent with last week, 5 for 5 for 65. relatively consistent. But again, because of how volatile everything is, I don't know how much I would really expect that you're going to get anything more out of him, because the snap share could change or the usage could change, and at that point you're getting a sub 40-degree day. I don't know how you necessarily are able to guess that you're going to get a spike week. This would have been the week that I would have been rolling him against the Colts. You could think that maybe this would turn into a little bit more of a shootout because of the offense. Texans D is going to drag everything down, and then you're kind of guess that, like, when are they going to really need to open this up, or have him end up being the number one behind Nico for a week, especially with a snap share. I just don't think it's going to happen. Not to say that I don't think there's going to be the possibility he gets in a touchdown. I just don't know if you're going to necessarily be able to go like, this is the week that I'm going to be rolling the guy and guess it right with any type of logic behind it or anything like that. Tight ends. If you're chasing your 40-degree days at tight end, Dalton Schultz, 72% snaps, 8 targets. But the interesting thing, why I even bring up Dalton Schultz, 41% snaps for Cade Silver. So coming off the broken foot, that's just ticking up there. 2 for 2 for 16, and he had 4 carries on top of that. So, like, and this is like short yardage work and stuff like that. Like, I could see that may get a rushing touchdown out of Cade Stover. There may be a magical week out of Cade Stover down the line. All right, and then Titans, and there's like almost nothing to talk about with the Titans other than like if you really are desperate in your super deep leagues. So like A.O. Minor's back, 85% snaps, 5 targets, and again to get an idea of what the passing game was like, 24 for 38, 141 for Cam Ward in this one, and then Deke, 76% snaps in this one. Like those are the two guys. If you're chasing any of that stuff, tight ends. Expecting that you're going to get like full usage flop. I don't know if it's going to happen, especially because the offense is so bad. 53% snaps, Gunnar Helm, 7 for 6 for 23. So like usage is going to remain somewhat consistent with him. 2 red zone opportunities. So you got to be like really deep and dark and guessing that you're going to get a functional Titans offense. I don't know if you're going to be able to do that. Running back usage remain consistent if you're wondering about that overall. Vikings. So, like, if it couldn't get worse on offense, it did. So, with J.J. McCarthy, and remember, it says that he's in line to start. Generally, because of the concussion protocol stuff, guys have been missing like 2 weeks. So, it would not be surprising that he doesn't come back till week 15, and you may get another week of, like, where's he at? Max Brosmer. And I was actually thinking about, like, I felt bad. I should have talked about him last week. Because there's a possibility that he was going to be able to outperform J.J. McCarthy because the bar is so low, and then he didn't. So like, so I don't feel bad. 4 interceptions right there, and then they did cut loose. Desmond Ridder, it says right there. So any possibility that you would get like a 1 week Desmond Ridder at this point down the line, maybe that means you're gonna get J.J. McCarthy. I don't know how much is gonna change anything. Now it gets a little bit more fun if you really are ugly and you're chasing stuff. You're this late in the season. So Aaron Jones may have a shoulder. He was at 37% snaps. He got the only red zone in this game. Did not get your equal and opposite reaction with Jordan Mason, 29% snaps in this one. And the reason why I bring all this up, if you're going to be chasing, you're going to be like doing any of that stuff. If Aaron Jones misses, Xavier Scott, 19% snaps. Would not be surprising that he ends up even potentially getting like a full run, like 60% snaps, passing down work, something like that. I could see that over. It does look like they're kind of over any type of like Jordan Mason thing, giving him the stuff. And then you're gonna have to guess the right week that like you're gonna get like full Jordan Mason, something like if there's a week. It's just really ugly. So I know, and this is one of the ones with the channel, and I'll just end this with this hot take. Like, man, trying to, at this point, if you are competitive in your league and you're trying to win, like you're getting more and more to the point where like Justin Jefferson may be a wide receiver 3, which means like, yeah. And then going back to like, I don't know if you can trust the outcome for the Texans with Higgins, because I see that he's like one of the higher waiver wire ads this week. I may want Jaden Higgins more than I want Justin Jefferson at this point. So like, there's my hot take in that one. And that's what I got for about fantasy football this week. And hopefully I will be able to maintain some type of interest in fantasy football for the next 2 weeks as I wait for my my chance to play in my semifinals and my money week. And I'll get a video out done next week sometime. I don't know.